Syntax for now is out the door. That's a Google thing. That's not even an
Right.
agent thing now. Elon basically said they're going to be writing their own language to talk to each other is more efficient. But we saw Facebook do it. It's called Jack and Jill. And when they realized that each other were bots, they started speaking in straight up assembly. It was going so fast, and no one knew what they were doing, so they shut it off. And that was like 2013.
They spent their whole life. They spent their whole college career with AI, and that hit me, bro. That was like
that's crazy.
You know, there's the people who have to come out of retirement to save us from all the vibers.
Build out this app, give it minimal like prompting, whatever else, let it run, give it the skills to do some movement, whatever, all this stuff. It came out with something that was functionally correct, but inaccurate at the same time.
How do you know what to Google if you've never heard of it?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 6 of the Agentic Era podcast. I'm your host, Ken. This is our host, Isaac.
What's up?
We're going to get right to it. We were talking off camera, and I said, hold on, man. Whoa, you get into the topics. We need to record this. So here we go. So just to warm it up a little bit, man, what would you say, let's say, the direction of software engineering? Where do you think we're headed right now? I mean, what are the tea leaves saying that you're seeing right now? It's latest updates, latest trends, latest. I know it's loaded, but just roll with it.
I mean, I'll take a step back and just say, how many different ways are there to code now, right? Let's
how many different platforms?
Platforms and styles. Like, it's no longer Windows versus Mac. You could be on iOS, you could be on Android, you can be across the world prompting. There's so many variables now. There's all these different types of agents. You know, was doing some security work, and both Claude has their own security tools, and Codex has their own, right? Like Cursor has their own. Like everyone has all these security tools now. Each one has different findings, right? Each one has different severities. So even just something like that, where it's like, oh, I think I fixed everything. Then you throw it in a whole new model. You got a whole nother set of items to resolve, right? So just the difference in thinking is useful in some ways, but also it's kind of creating a situation where it's like, how far down the rabbit hole of like fixing what AI is telling you to fix do you need to go, or do you settle on one model versus the other? So yeah, man, there's just so many different variables, and that's like very light on that direction. But just software engineering in general, as we're kind of saying,
don't just breeze by that. Hold on, what are you doing though? Like, are you using all the things? Are you using Codex? Are you going back to Claude? Are you also cross-checking against Cursor? Like, what are you doing though? How do you?
I'm using all the things. Because there's no default yet. Like, there's no winner. There's no winner here. You guys probably know by now. Like, I'm a big Cursor fan. Ken's now a Cursor fan. I don't know if you told the people that yet.
Yes.
But Cursor from a developer perspective is amazing, and definitely go check out their latest. They did a video or an event, I guess, Cursor Dev Days. Had some speakers from Shopify and all this kind of stuff, and they're really for the developers. But I'm still doing a bulk of code in Claude CLI, and I'm still watching what Codex is doing. I'm not developing in Codex per se, at least any current projects, but I'm actively in Cursor just as much as I am in Claude. And then, in other times I'm defaulting to Cursor. So that's how I'm like handling that portion of it though.
Yeah, I'm doing something kind of similar. So one, I'm no longer doing anything outside of dev containers, dude. Like, the model isn't even touching my host machine. First of all, I'm in dev containers. And what's nice about Cursor is it looks into the dev container for you, like through the agent window. You don't actually have to be in your own specific VS Code instance, right? Like, the agent window can go into many different containers you have open. That's a thing that I think is slept on when it comes to cursor. But aside from that, I'm spinning up a dev container and I'm running Claude in it. I'm literally running Claude in the dev container. So those for you who haven't used it, basically I'm running Claude in Docker. And there's a Docker sandbox feature that lets you do that out of the box anyways. If you want to run that command, check out Docker sandboxes. There's a bunch of other sandboxes out there, but Docker has one. But me personally, I'm running Claude, planning in it and then doing auto mode, letting it run and just run amok, do its thing. And then the side note, I'm also having cursor now, the agent window. I can choose any model, right? Because Claude code kind of locks you into, you're in the ecosystem, man. You're in Opus,
right?
Sonnet, whatever have you. But when it comes to the code reviewing part of it, other aspects of it, little quick notes. I have agents window open, asking little one-off things about the implementation that I don't want to directly implement it yet, but I'm kind of brainstorming, ideating. I'm also in going directly into the dev container from the agent window as well, and also doing the verifying security checks and whatever else. And what's nice about it, man, is if you kind of keep it general, like sort of agents MD, security MD, all architecture MD, all that kind of stuff, you can collect your learnings, right? So that I think is a thing that we can kind of build up. Maybe you don't want to solve this right away. Maybe this isn't applicable. Maybe you want to implement it right now. All those things get that compiled up. And I mean, at some point, others in your project now can see the document decisions. If you want to put it in separate docs, whatever it may be, but you can record all that. And so that way that intelligence isn't leaving with you and from your session, right?
Yeah.
Others have it. You can look back at what you did yesterday, all the things. And then now maybe Opus didn't pick up what GPT-5, soon to be 5.6 did, which we don't have access to that yet, but hoping for that. We'll get into that later. But you have that now cross-check, right? And say, Claude, this is some additional security considerations. What do you think about this? And like you have that log. So now Claude knows it too, right? Now Opus, if you will. Now Opus knows it too. So that collected learnings, as long as you kind of keep consolidating that, collecting that, especially with security. Yeah, that's kind of the way to
how are you dealing with the added context, quote unquote, bloat of all these MD files now living in your repositories? You notice any trade-offs there?
So, man, I got to kind of step back to just a system I kind of found. So I did get a little happy.
Hit the like, subscribe. Can't see me.
No, I'm giving a pitfall here is what I'm giving. So basically, I got the thing I always warn about. I'm like, all right, guys, look, still use your engineering practices, still slice your features the right way, yada, yada, yada. I got excited just like normal, right? And I'm like, oh, well, let me just give this thing a huge, start from scratch, build out this app, give it minimal, like prompting, whatever else, let it run, give it the skills to do some looping, like whatever, all the stuff. It came out with something that was functionally correct, but inaccurate at the same time. So I went back to my own first principles of the development. I'm like, all right, let me just go back, wipe everything down. Let me get back to just the core crux of the first MVP feature, not even MVP, but the first foundational piece. And what that kind of led me to is that one, you have token savings so people, the thing that can save you tokens people don't really think about is the unit testing, the integration testing. Because now I'm not having, whatever my agent is, look at all the logs, gather all the details, do all things. You can write a test for it. There's tests already for it, right? So now you're not getting a lot of that bloat having to read into everything as well, right? Another thing that you can save on is just sort of, again, the slicing of the feature setting. I also encourage people to start with the foundation first. Get your foundation laid. If you're trying to do a feature and you don't have a foundation yet, you will incur that bloat in your context. Absolutely. Because what I found is, I've asked, I've been prompting and vibe coding, what have you, and I build out a feature and then I ask it a question or veer to something else. And I realized the thing I'm looking at wasn't even in the context. It's existing code, but it wasn't even in the context because it didn't need it. Right. Yeah. My foundation was built in a way where I could slice it vertically in a way.
This was a Claude?
This is in Claude. Yeah, this is in Claude. But but that pattern works with anything, right? Like Whereas if you slice your features, if you build your foundation first, make sure you have your tests set up and ready to go, and you vertically slice your features, you don't have to read in the context for everything. Because not everything's going to be a security concern. Like, yeah, you want to have a fallback policy to make sure you have auth for all your endpoints or whatever, like that kind of stuff. But you're not having to go tremendously into all the weeds of things for all the features, right? So, but if you give it one thing that spans across multiple features, then it's like, well, now you just need to get into your software factory mode. Which
I realized that the ability to stack, like, that's been a game changer too, when you're just pushing out feature after feature, and then you're waiting for, even if you're not waiting for a PR, to stack a feature means that your agent can kind of look back and forward on what it's built over time. And you might be able to like catch bugs before you merge in. Versus like the workspaces, being totally isolated. What I found is if I can stack, the agent can like quickly go check how those PRs are going, update an existing PR based off of the other one's changes, and it almost feels like a good flow. That was something I did recently that I was like, oh, okay, now I see, why they've added like these stacking features. Although like stacking is part of Git, it's been there. I'm also realizing there's a ton of features of Git that whoever created Git just knew we needed in the future, because
work trees. Thank you for work trees. Thank you.
Yeah. Did you know that there's it's almost like it's a Git command that can find the root bug, and you can just run that, and it'll do the diff on your Git to look at the binary to see what changed, and then it'll try to like guess. Like this is without AI. It's just doing basically repping.
What?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. So now if you tell AI to use that, it can like find its own bugs. It's actually insane.
Like and subscribe. Hey, drop the link in the description. We're gonna drop the link. We're gonna find that feature. I need that. Oh,
yeah.
Man.
But it's called Git Bisect. It's actually pretty sick. It's gonna look at all your changes over time and figure out which one is like bad.
Man.
And then it can reset the chain. So now tell your agent to do a Git bisect on something that's gone wrong, and it will go check for it.
Nice.
Yeah. Man. But no, you brought up all the documentation stuff, which is super interesting how you're handling that. I think for me, I do try to keep the MD files, but in many cases when I'm planning, I delete the plan. Like I don't keep the original plan that I had, and then any MD files or skills, I try to translate over. I can't say I've noticed that there's hallucination or things like that by having all these MD files. It seems to do a pretty good job. But I finally took the time to set up my Obsidian vault with the wiki after I saw Google came out with their own wiki standard. And that kind of made me say, okay, this actually might be moving in a direction that is here to stay, especially if Google wanted to make the standard for it. So I set up the wiki, and I mean, overall, what I did was I moved all my notes in that direction, and then it just has an index file to know like the glossary of where it should go. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can't say I've done anything crazy with it, but I feel like it's so much easier to spin up a brand new agent and just be like, hey, what's this? Or, let's continue this or something like that, because it's able to look at the vault. And I don't have to like reprompt it to do all this extra stuff beforehand.
I feel like it's like Git, right? Like we just talked about how you mentioned there's features that are built in already. That it's like almost like they knew this was coming, right?
Yeah.
And I think the use cases for the vault right now are, I mean, yeah, you can make, AI native companies, right? Your company is now queryable if you put all your information in the vault, all your practices, your IP, like all the things. But from a agent and coding perspective, you haven't seen it used as heavily on that side. But when we talk about the centralized memory, right? It's like we know, Claude, they, Anthropic dropped the whole memory feature, right? And so we're like, okay, it's going to be like a centralized memory where you can have memory now interact with all these different agents. So if your API is going and that has agents, now all the different various agents interacting with it, agent to agent protocol, whatever you're doing, can now have the same context and share the same things. So I'm like, okay, but you're locked into Anthropic if you're using, what I mean? That's the vendor lock we talked about. Whereas, and if you have second brain style, right, where Obsidian and you have the links going, if you can find a way to traverse through that quickly, because you can use AI search and different things, and there's vector, there's algorithms, nearest neighbor, and all the different stuff. You can do embeddings and all that. But again, you're having to now have extra storage for your embeddings and all of that, right? What is the document repository equivalent of that? And I feel like Obsidian does a great job of even you being able to visualize and see the linkages between things. Like, tell me how this graph, right? Tell me how this user A, or I shouldn't say user, because that's probably not the use case you want to start with. Tell me how scenario A is now linked down the road and can get me to scenario D that is an end of a transaction. How did that linkage go? What's the flow of that? Like what's the decisions that were made? Like the logical graph. You can see it and also the agent can see it, right? Whereas now it's just a black box. I don't know. When I see embeddings, I don't know. You're looking at just straight. So I think that is one of those things that's going to blow up from a use case someone's going to find in software engineering that's like, hey, I found a good way to kind of link these situations scenario. What if you have BDD going on and you have it all linked up within Obsidian in a way that's also then linked to some integration tests as well, right? And now you can see the derived line and path of a bug. Hey, this bug that hit, what all of my code is affected? If this is a mono repo, right? Like you can traverse through it and see it. So again, not clearly defined use cases yet, but I feel like it's a little bit ahead of its time from the software engineering perspective side of it.
Yeah. If not to downplay Obsidian, I don't think its core benefit is only the knowledge graph. I just think it works as a really good documentation tool, right? Some people who use OneNote or Google Notes, Apple Notes, whatever. I used to be a OneNote fan 1,000% because OneNote was one of the only tools you could, create sections. You don't have to work in a storybook style. You just plot things here, there, whatever, add connectors, whatever. Obsidian is the only thing I've seen that does that since OneNote. But then on top of it, it has all those other developer more centric features. But I think that graph part must be really important too, because I did see Cursor added graphs on their side too when you're looking at the Markdown. So
it's on its way, bro. It has a CLI, so you should already that told me right away, okay, this is where we're going.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw business users aren't using the CLI to go do any kind of operations, the agents are going to use the CLI. So that's they're already using the CLI. But I did a video on it. Y'all check it out if on the channel. But yeah, while we're getting into it, man, I feel like we're gonna say a lot of things here, and we always say a lot of things about the direction we're moving. But we're obviously we're a little more senior in our careers. We've been doing this thing before agents hit. What kind of advice are we giving people right now, as far as the newcomers? I know you probably mentor some. And I know you mentor some, right? So what do you feel like is good advice to even give right now, as what we're talking about could change next week, right?
Yeah. Honestly, it depends at the level too. I heard an interesting fact and shows you how fast time moves, that we just hit that group of interns or first year in career students who spent their whole time with AI, right? Because ChatGPT 2021, right?
Oh,
People that have
geez. Okay.
graduated in 4 years,
Oh, dang.
they spent their whole
Okay.
life, they spent their whole college career with AI. And that
That's
hit me, bro. That was
crazy.
like,
That's crazy.
yeah, like despite the how easy it might be to go do something, but then on the other side, the challenge of did you retain or did you just breeze through it? Um, Luckily, when you come to the real world, it's a lot easier than school. But I think the difference is school gives you that grit to not really quit. Like you'll
Mm.
just
Yep.
sift through any challenges. At least for engineering, right? Like you'll spend 13 hours in the lab on one lab, and then you have a
Man.
final the next day. Like that kind of stuff you can't even make up. It's comical how wild college can be. So number one, despite all of like the hey, become an entrepreneur, I still think a foundation in education is really important, just because it
Yes.
teaches you how to think. It's not for everybody, but if you're seriously considering a career of like, hey, I want to build rockets or I want to get into advanced AI, all this kind of stuff. Um, there's doors that open for you at any level, whether you self-studied or went to a boot camp, whatever. But then there's doors you can't enter without specific degrees or a really specific set of knowledge. So I think early on it's okay to explore, but as time moves on, you need to decide what you want to do based off of where you are today, where you're trying to get to tomorrow. All that's AI aside. None of that has to deal with AI, right? That's
For
you
sure. For
understanding
sure.
your mentality as a human and how you're going to cognitively handle the situations of the world. But then, once you start thinking about how AI is replacing things or this and that, should I get into software engineering? What's the point? I might as well pick up a labor job. I think I think we still are going to need engineers, but I think what you should be looking for is a mentor, somebody who's been there before, ideally, right? That can help you see things the way they were before that. And then on the inverse, they can learn from you too. There's a whole set of people who have been in the industry for 20, 30 plus years who have built some of the foundational things that we rely on as programmers that will never get any credit because they were the guys in the dungeon, the ponytail coders, right? They don't want the credit. They don't want to speak up at these board meetings. But those guys are the ones that are built a lot of the things we're running, and they have so much to say, right? They have so much understanding of the lower level code of some of these programs, and you can learn a lot from that. And then there's the people who have to come out of retirement to save us from all the vibers.
Cobalt engineers. They're still
Like,
running that banks.
it's like, whoa, what is going on here? Like the code base looks like a war space, but like,
Come out of retirement is crazy. Oh snap! Oh, here we go.
oh man, no, but seriously, because
Oh jeez.
look at some of these code bases. On average, every PR is a minimum 2,000 lines if you're working on a team, because features can come out in hours instead of sprints. So
AI's not training on those, right? just want to be clear. Like,
hey,
they're leaving those alone, right?
I guess it depends what pricing model you have set up, because they could be. But yeah, I mean, bro, like, yeah, advice wise, like we need to find efficient ways to work with AI. We're all kind of exploring it. Some of us have more hours in than others, so we've learned some tactics. And then there are just people who have more hours than others in the field who know fundamental tactics. Those two sides need to blend. So I do think anybody coming out of school still has an advantage, because you've found interesting ways to work with AI that is going to bring new paradigms of thinking in the workforce. But learn from the people in the workforce. Don't come in too strong and assume you know everything because AI is at your fingertips. Because it still is wrong. Like it's probably a good thing that AI can be wrong, right? Like you can never feel overconfident. So fact check yourself, pick up your books, read, comment in Stack Overflow because we're gonna need that. Like we still got to give back. I think the biggest problem is there's siloed learnings. Because you're spending a lot of time interacting with the AI, you may not, identify and tell your team about something you learned, or even go tell the internet about something you learned or something you're struggling with. So the only person understanding it is this AI. So that's the best I can do, man.
hey, no, I'm with you, man. When you're talking, man, it made me think about some things I started implementing, man, where, because again, back to my original story, right, where, I went back, had to regroup, and was like, this isn't for me. I need to just get back to the basics. And again, still with AI, but I built the foundation first. So I was able to walk through certain things, make sure certain parts of the foundation were there. Then I could build the features on top of that. And it went so smoothly. But I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't done projects from scratch on my own in all the previous years, right? So I feel like, and again, that's also muscle, right? That you don't want to lose. So me personally, I just created some little, console apps and some other little things where I can just hand code, no AI assisted whatsoever. Just bare bones, just getting in there, just gritting it out. And I play, I'm trying to exercise it probably 3 times a week. You know what I mean? And I saw an article written about that. So I was like, okay, let me just try that. And that's one of the things that, man, I'm looking into, because I feel like even though we have this now, we also can get a little bit farther away. But honestly, this is what a lot of people have already been doing, man. Like before us, right? Before this era, right? People were becoming technical architects, and they were getting too far away from things. And then they had to kind of get their grit back and kind of get back into it to help kind of lead some more of the cutting edge technologies. But they were always just experimenting and doing that kind of stuff. Same thing here. Like, though AI can go and run with it, we still need to go do some experiments. We need to hand roll some stuff on our own and just keep a little bit of that muscle memory fresh, right? And I kind of, I feel like the flow that I saw from when I first started to bite off more than I can chew on too many features together, or too large of a feature together, versus me setting a foundation and gradually building. Like, man, that was just clear as day to me. Like, we're not there yet. Like, we gotta keep back to our principles. But you hit on something earlier, man. Aside from coming out of retirement, basically, like, do you think there's gonna be, like, if we're losing more of those people, right, who were building their foundational frameworks of them, like, what does it look like in the future, right? Are people still going to be creating more and more frameworks on their own at such a low level that AI is going to be able to utilize, or are they just jumping in the hype? Like, what's happening there?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really good question. Like, we have the Reacts and the Views of the world. We have the Python, the Node of the world. Like, you have your front ends, your back ends. What's the problem to solve at the software level anymore, right? I can see more of that shifting on the front end side, where maybe they talk about like these dynamic UIs, things like that. Maybe there'll be new frameworks and libraries that have to exist to remove some of the complexities that these existing frameworks have, or I should say abstract, right? Something like a Tailwind, where you don't have to really worry about the styling. I can see that, but it is a good question, because how many more coding languages will there be? If AI is doing all of it and they don't really care what the code looks like anymore, does AI just go back to assembly or C, or like find out what's the most efficient format for it to save on energy or whatever that a situation is? And then if it chooses that, do you understand what's happening if you needed to? I guess I'll put a question out to the community. For anyone that's using AI today in a production setting, or anything that's mission critical, have you had any errors where you had to troubleshoot or debug or roll back? And if the answer to that is yes, when it came down to finding the root cause as fast as possible to, resolve that outage, Did you find it or did AI find
That is the question. And man, I'll go back to something Elon said, because Elon basically said they're going to be writing their own language to talk to each other is going to be more efficient. But we saw Facebook do it inadvertently, right? Where they had, it was called Jack and Jill, where they released two bots out and they found each other. And when they realized that each other were bots, they started speaking in straight up assembly. And then it was going so fast and no one knew what they were doing. So they shut it off and they were panicked. And that was like 2013.
Yeah.
But now I think we're more apt to accept that. We're not nicer primed and conditioned to accept that. So that's gonna be interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I feel like, man, that's another thing I didn't mention too. Like when you're like, as far as for new engineers, right? Anything you're building, you should know the eval, right? So there's two levels of the eval to me, or two levels of the eval. One is like, can you produce it? Like, what is the outcome, right? When I click this button, I submit this order, I'm expecting this outcome. I'm expecting this error. I'm expecting this validation issue, right? To say, hey, user, you can't do this. That's front facing. But when something goes wrong, to your point about the agent, I'm not trying to spoil the question, but you need to know how to debug. You need to know how I can access the stack trace. How can I see where the error is hitting? How can I tell what layer it is, right? In a 3-tier architecture, like where is the error hitting? Where would I even look to go see that, right? And I think that that's part of that next eval, right? Because yeah, the agent can go hunt down some logs and do all that stuff. But if you know where to look, I mean, talk about wasting tokens, right? If you say, oh man, I hit this button, I got an error message, go find out what happened.
Right.
Versus, hey, I'm seeing a duplicate key showing up in the DB because this stack trace shows me this here. How is it duplicated? Can we put a safeguard around this duplicate? Right. So that's a thing that, I mean, talk about token save and the precision on it. AI might fix or do a couple things on the way there that you might not need, or it might search a few things, or it might get misdirected, whatever. But you give it that level of precision, it's able to kind of now achieve what you needed to, low token costs, and you're also aware of the product. Because to your point, AI is not there. What you gonna do?
You're right. The precision, the surgical piece of insert this code here is kind of half of the job. Like, we've all inherited old code bases in our lives, right? And you gotta add this feature. You're not really sure about the code. Okay, well, I can trace it. I can see. Maybe I can feature flag it, right? I won't destroy something, but that precision of knowing where to place that line of code is part of the job. And I think that gets abstracted too much at this point. But Ken, you mentioned something on like being able to code, but in the past you used to work on things that aren't as fresh, and how we should make sure that we can continue to code, and you're practicing coding without AI. It kind of resonated a little bit, made me think of a situation. Want to get your take on this. Throughout your career, you might have started in C# or Java, and then you go somewhere else, and maybe they're using JavaScript, right? Totally different paradigm. And you stay there long enough that you haven't touched what?
What's TypeScript, please?
TypeScript, yeah, whatever. Kotlin, you want some Kotlin?
Not vanilla JS, please. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry.
All right.
Past traumas.
I know you're a C#. I know you're a C# guy. So, but I can't translate C# to Java. You'll be like, bet I got it. But like you jump into a totally different tech stack, and now it's been years. You haven't touched your C#. Do you think you forget it eventually, or is it that muscle memory? Like, I'm trying to compare that to coding with AI versus coding naturally. Would you ever forget it, or does it just take a while to start up the car?
I think it depends on how long you were in it, though. Me, most of my career, I started my career out, then C++. Then the majority was C#. And again, did a lot of front end as well. So JavaScript, and I was doing jQuery, all the things, right? And then TypeScript came along, and I was like, yes, where have you been? So now I can strongly type. Because, man, listen, if you ever debugged, and then we got IDEs that are incredible now, but I'm talking about before that. If you were in primitive land, right, doing stuff with jQuery and JavaScript, trying to debug that in developer tools, console, and all the different things, that was a nightmare. So TypeScript came along, and I was like, oh, man, I can catch errors at build time instead of runtime. This is fantastic. Yeah, runtime errors. Yeah. So anyways, I digress. But I think if you spend a lot of time in the language, I think you can brush it up and pick it back up pretty quickly. But I will say this. It's more important to know the principles than it is to know the language. So anyone that's probably spent a tremendous amount of time in any language can, and then maybe learn a little bit of another one. It's almost like a being bilingual, right? Like they say, the more language you know, the easier it is to pick up new languages. I think it's like that with coding as well. So if you spend time learning a couple of different languages, you know the principles that you're looking for instead of the syntax, because what you're describing right now is a syntax issue, right? Of like, man, I need to figure out the syntax, but I know things about object-oriented programming. I know about, allocation and different things like that. If you take those same principles into any languages, there's going to be something along the lines of they handle them differently, maybe, right? There's some more advantageous than others, but the principle that's still there. So you can even right now, you can do a Google search and say, okay, how do I concatenate this string in TypeScript versus what's a better example? In C#, I can have let's say, inherit from a base class and do polymorphism to do this, blah, blah, blah. How do I do that in TypeScript? And then it will show you how to make a subclass and do all the things, right? So you can take what you know from one language and go to the other based on the fact you know the principles. So I think really key is principles, the high level principles that you can apply to any language. And I think that's really the thing. It's like syntax for now is out the door. Like syntax is smooth. Like, how do I do this like I would in C# is like just that's a Google thing. That's not even an agent thing now.
Yeah, finish your point there.
No, that was it.
Okay. Yeah, I was just gonna say that's why it's important that you have the formal training. I won't say education, but training. Either you go to school and learn that stuff, or you have a mentor that teaches you that stuff, because on the job, the business is not going to tell you that, right? You may have a really good manager, and your manager will coach you and tell you that you should do things a certain way and learn this. But not everybody is that fortunate. So I think, reflecting back on that question, it still comes down to getting someone who got your back, who you can learn from, give you some resources on books and all that kind of stuff. So
I'll ask you this though. Do you think we can reverse engineer the problem with the agents? So that being said, it's like, what if, let's say pretend you're junior and you just ask it for way too much to implement this feature, and it threw out like 3 different projects, all this different high-tech stuff, and you're like, I'm just getting started. What the heck? I ran it and it worked. There's going to be the good side. The bad side is going to be like, hey, man, you just did this feature. Go tell your boss, go run with this. Go tell the team this is exciting. That's the normal response. Maybe I feel like it might be. But then there's another response you could have where you can say, okay, hold on, this is a little bit much. I don't understand most of this. I can now ask AI to walk me through this and explain to me like I'm a beginner on what this does. Oh, well, this is the case. What is it? What does that mean? What does this feature do? You gave me 5 different terms I don't understand. Break these down for me. And can they reverse engineer the solution I was just given and give them an understanding? I feel like it's not going to stick as well as when you're, go through the toil we used to go through. But
it's a really good point. How was your code written on your first 6 months of coding? Right, like you didn't have
big trash.
You didn't have
big
AI.
Trash.
Everything was coupled. Everything was in the same file. Like it was probably pretty crazy. So If AI wrote it from the jump or you inherited it, I think you can ask the questions, but sometimes it comes down to something I always say, which is like, how do you know what to Google if you've never heard of it?
Yeah.
So hopefully the AI can push you down the right direction and give you some areas to look at. But half of prompting is your ability to create that right question, and you got to have some depth there, right?
Isaac, man, you sound like you know what you're talking about. I feel like you should make a skill for the community, but maybe that's I'm just gonna maybe you create a learning skill.
I'll put the community on and create a skill when we get 1,000 likes on this video.
I love it.
Not saying I don't want to help out. We got 5 other episodes of free game, so definitely check that out. But in all seriousness, if you've made it this far into the video, we really do appreciate you watching. Like, Agentic Era, again, it's us focusing on the core things that are happening in software engineering, but for you guys, not the latest news you can see on X, unless those really do impact us in a meaningful way that we should discuss. We're going through the hard changes right now as software engineers with AI, as people who want to become software engineers or have exited software engineers or looking to exit as software engineers. And just the core conversation of technical learning and how we're going to be able to sustain our growth as technical people. So if you resonate with that, subscribe, hit the like. And honestly, as far as the community goes, we do have some content that we can dish out. We're working through our community plans. There's just some things behind the scenes that are different these days. So we got you guys. Just let us know you're here. Let us know you're watching. But I mean, Ken, anything to close this out?
No, man, you landed that plane perfectly.
All right.
With that, I'll say thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you next time.
All right. Thanks, guys. Peace.